Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we proudly bring to you the paranormal podcast sensation that is sweeping the nation, hosted by Andrew and John. This is Sasquatchers! And the intro said it all. I'm Andrew. That is John. This is Sasquatchers. Tonight we have an awesome guest that I've been looking forward to speaking with since I started this show. It's actually one of the first gentlemen that I reached out to be a guest. And it just took a while to be able to interact with each other because he was out doing the Lord's work, squatching. And his name is Daniel Hageman. He is the founder and the director of the Butler Organization for the Research of the Unexplained, formerly known as the Butler UFO Group. And without further ado, I will pass it along to him so that he can tell us a little bit about that organization.
Thanks for having us, guys. My name is Daniel Hageman. I'm the founder and director of the Butler Organization for Research of the Unexplained. That's BORU for short, BORU. We started out back in 1982, early part of 82, and at that point in time, we went by the Butler UFO Group. And we're primarily focused just on the UFO phenomena. And over the years, membership started to grow. We had people that they got quite upset because all we talked about were UFO sightings. And of course, if you didn't have anything new to talk about, you talked about Roswell or things that happened back in 1946, 1947. And we had people that were truly interested in ghosts, the dog man, Bigfoot, and other creatures and the paranormal in general. So I thought about it, and I thought, what can we do to broaden our horizons? And we need to change our brand. We need to change the name of the group, and hence was the birth of the Butler Organization for Research of the Unexplained. That pretty much says it all. It covers all facets of the phenomena. I've had people tell me that I'm absolutely crazy. I've had people tell me that when I die, I'm going to burn and I'm going to go to hell for believing in such things. And, then on the other hand, I've had people that they just kind of, go out and it's like they cling to you. They just follow you everywhere you go. Call them groupies, if you will. I don't consider myself in that light, but the reason why I get into it, my first encounter, UFO encounter, I was 5 years of age. My whole family was involved. And of course, back then, you probably have a younger listening audience, but for those of you that can remember what they called the blue laws, and what the blue laws was on Sundays, there was absolutely nothing open. You couldn't buy milk. You couldn't buy bread. You couldn't buy toilet paper. You couldn't even get gasoline. Everything was closed on Sundays. So what did people do? They spent the day. Families would get together, go to the grandparents, so on and so forth, which in this case, that's exactly what my family would do. On Sundays, we'd get up, we'd go to church. After church, we'd load up in the family car and we'd go to the grandparents for the day. And we would stay from daybreak till 9, 10 o'clock at night, and then we'd load up and we'd go home. My grandparents, they lived up off of Route 38 north of Butler. And they lived in a small community just outside of North Washington, PA. We were coming home and we were headed south on Route 38 near the Oneida Valley Dam. If any of your listeners happen to know that name or possibly know where it is, but we're on the most northern part of the reservoir. My uncle had a 1959 Ford Skyliner, and to get a real good idea, your viewers they can look it up. 1959 Ford Skyliner. Half of the roof was made out of, I don't know if it was glass, like the windshield in our cars, or plexiglass, or some type of shatterproof glass. But from the back of the front seat to the windshield, you could look up through the roof. And my two sisters and my aunt were in the back seat. My uncle was driving. I'm sitting in the center front, and my mother on the right. And we were at the coming in 38 most northern part of the dam, and my mother elbows me and she says, "Why are you being so quiet?" And I guess 5 years old, I was quite a hellion, so I've been told. And I pointed and I said, "Well, I'm looking at those funny lights up there." And of course, immediately my mother, she's looking up, and my uncle, he's periodically taking his eyes off the road and he's looking up, and my aunt and my sisters are trying to look up from the back seat. And he finally pulls the car across the road onto the berm by the dam, and he gets out. He reaches in, turns the headlights off, shuts the ignition off, and what we were looking at directly above the car. Now, the car's moving, and these things are moving right along with us. The minute he stopped the car, these things stopped directly above the vehicle. They were about the size of your average dinner plates, the saucer. They were side by side. One was spinning right, one was spinning left, clockwise, counterclockwise. And it looked like whatever they were was like a orangish, yellowish, reddish kind of burning orb. And you could clearly see some type of structure, but you couldn't quite make it out because of the way they were glowing. We sat there. My mom, she says, Jack was my uncle's name. "Jack, what do you think it is? What do you think it is?" And he says, I don't know. And he get in the car, started the car up, and he pulled back out onto the road, turned the headlights on, and the minute we started moving, these things started moving right along with us.
Oh, wow.
Now, the whole time they're getting bigger, so obviously they're coming down. And we got to the breastwork of the dam, and again he pulled the car over, and by this time they were bigger than a dinner plate, a large dinner plate that you would get with your dinner set. And you could see a lot more definition. You could tell that there were two objects that looked like they were connected somehow, some way. You could look up between them and you could see stars, so you knew that there was an opening, but in the front and the back, they looked like they were connected. He jumped back in the car, started it up, put it in gear, and peeled out. Didn't have the headlights on, and my mom's hollering at him, "Turn the lights on. What are you trying to do? Get us killed." Now, there's no traffic on the road, north, south. We're the only car going south on 38. We hit a couple sharp S turns, and these things are right with us, directly above the car. We come into a group of trees, both right and left side of the road, and periodically you could look up through the canopy where the opening was in the trees, and you could see that these things were just now above the tops of the trees. And you could see the glow either side of the road, on the berms of the road, pitch black, but you could see the glow from these things. Then we come into an area where the canopy was so thick we lost sight of them. He's doing about 90 miles an hour. We lost sight of them. We get home. My mother hurry up and got my two sisters and myself off the bed. And my mom, my aunt, and my uncle, they stayed up all night long talking about, what do you think it was? Do you think we should call somebody? So on and so forth. And exactly 2 days later, front page of the Butler Eagle, local paper in Butler, PA. It had northern Butler County residents startled by unidentified aerial phenomena. So there were other people that saw these things that reported them. That was the start. 5 years of age, I'd have bizarre dreams. I remember one time I was in my mother's bed. She had a queen or king size bed. It was huge. I wake up and I'm laying face down. And you take a king size or queen size bed, there wasn't one section of that bed that wasn't covered in some kind of slime. It's the only way I can describe it. A gooey slime. And I'm face down in it. I was covered from head to toe in this stuff. And, my mother come in, she got me up. She, obviously put me in the shower and washed me off and changed my clothes and changed the bedding and whatnot. But my mother had some bizarre things happen to her, possibly abduction. Now, I'm not saying that, yeah, we were abducted, but possibly. We've been told that we've been abducted. I've got scoop marks on my body, scoop marks on dead center of the back of both my hands. That it looked like somebody drove a spike the whole way through both of my hands. No idea, I've never injured myself any way, shape, or form that I can account for having those marks. I've got some scoop marks on the fronts of my legs, from my knees down to my ankles. I've got an object embedded in my right leg. I've had both my knees operated on, each of them 3 times. And the surgeon asked me, he said, what'd you do with your right leg, your shin? And I said, what do you mean? He says, well, you got a foreign object in there. He said, does that bother you? And he's pushing and prodding. And I said, no, but you could clearly feel it. And he said, well, let me show you these x-rays. And he throws the x-ray up on the viewer, and it looks like it's got little wires coming off of it. And he said, you sure that's not bothering you? And I said, no. I wouldn't even have known it was there until, you brought it up. He said, well, as long as it's not bothering you, we're not going to mess with it because it looks like it's embedded into the bone. But yet, if you take a magnet will stick to it. I have the effect that if I walk by an AM FM radio and you've got a perfectly, clear signal, when I walk by it, the signal goes completely away and you have nothing but static. Used to deal with a bank out at the Clearview Mall, and we'd get paid every Friday. So Friday nights we'd go out there to either deposit my check or deposit some of it and take some of it. And you'd walk through the first set of doorways into a little vestibule area, and then there's a second set of glass doors into the mall. And when you went in, the first business on the right was the bank. I'd walk through that first set of doors, and all their computers would go offline. And a Friday night, people cashing their paychecks, and the bank is busy. The first 3, 4, or 5 times it happened, ha ha ha, and then it got to the point. We went in and were met at the second set of doors going into the mall by the branch manager, and she hands me this envelope and she said, "We're sorry, you cannot come in here anymore," and they closed out my account. And every single time I'd go in there, their computers would go offline. That hasn't happened for quite some time. As far as I usually deal with the ATM machine. I don't go into the bank unless I have to. But we have ceiling fans that are remote control, and you'll be sitting there. They turn on, turn off by themselves. TV turn on, turn off by itself. So I have that effect on electronics. I can't explain it other than it happens. And I'm with friends or around people, and this stuff happens, and they just kind of look at you like, what the heck is going on, Uh, Beyond that, uh, a multitude of UFO sightings, sightings that literally cannot explain, although, definitely some type of craft. There was an incident where I call it a light being because that's the only thing that I can refer to. Uh, my whole family plagued with god awful severe migraine headaches, debilitating. I'd get them so bad I would have to go into a completely dark room, no sound whatsoever, put an ice pack under the back of my neck, put one on my forehead, total quietness, total darkness, and pray that I would fall asleep. And when I wake up, that the headache is either subsided or gone. And in many cases, subsided somewhat, but would last for days on end.
That sounds
Uh,
terrible.
yeah, it's no fun. Uh, my children, my children are plagued with migraine headaches. My whole entire family, but with this one particular night, my mother got us off to bed. She had a migraine headache so bad she just couldn't function, couldn't lay down. She just couldn't get comfortable, so she went out and she's sitting on the edge of the couch. Now we lived at that point in time. We were living above a grocery store, and you'd come in off the street. You'd go up 14 steps. You'd have like a little bit of a hallway. You'd make a left. You'd make a right. Go up about 10 more steps. Another little bit of a platform or hallway type thing. Turn to the left, and you'd go up 4 steps, and you were in the hall. And these rooms were like 20 by 30, 25 by 30. The rooms were huge. You'd come up in, you'd be in the hall, you'd make a right, there'd be a long hallway to your right that would take you back to the bathroom, or you'd go straight through into the kitchen. Excuse me, make a left, you'd go into my sister's room, make a right, come into my room, then into my mother's room, make a right or a left, and you'd go out into the living room. It was just like a big rectangle, but all separate rooms. My mom's sitting on the edge of the couch. She's trying to get comfortable any way that she can. And, she's holding her forehead, ice pack, and she tries to lay down, and her head's throbbing so bad she has to sit up. Now, there are no lights on. House is total dark. All at once, the hallway lit up like the sun had just come up, like it was daylight. My mom said, and of course, trying to get the information from my mother over the years, you'd see her choke up. Her eyes would get all teary, and then she'd start big tears rolling down her cheeks. She couldn't talk about it. So I really, really never got the full story from her. But she said the hallway lit up like daylight. And she said she's sitting there looking out into the hall, and she can see part of an arm and a hand on the railing. I get goosebumps talking about this. And she
Yeah,
said this
absolutely.
being is coming up the steps. And when it got to the top step, it turned. Perfect outline of a human being or what looked, but no facial features other than it was all illuminated and it was as bright as the sun. Started coming toward the doorway, and as soon as it crossed from the hall into the living room, the next thing she remembered, she was waking up and she's laying on the floor in front of the couch. That's all she could remember. That very next night, it was just the reverse, opposite of what I just told you guys. I remember complaining, how are we supposed to go to sleep with all the lights on? She had every light on in the house. How are we supposed to go to sleep? Just shut up, go to sleep. And again, she had the bad headache. She goes out and she's sitting on the couch and she's holding the ice pack on her forehead and one on the back of her neck. She couldn't lay down. And she says she heard this knocking noise. And she looked up and she seen, this time it was all black. She could see the arm, the hand, next thing, the full figure, and it turned. And she said when it turned, it was almost like it was mechanical. Turned, started coming toward the doorway, and again, as soon as it crossed through into the living room, the next thing she woke up, she was passed out. She was on the floor in front of the couch.
So
I remember her calling her brother, my uncle, and he's the one that was driving when we had the two saucer sighting out by the dam on Route 38. But she begged and pleaded with him. Now he was living in Akron, Ohio. We were in Butler. And he said, well, it's going to take me. I can't come today. But he said, I'll pack up some stuff. Begged and pleaded with him to come and stay with us for a couple of weeks. And he came, and everything was normal. When he left to go back to Akron, that very night, we had the same thing happen all over again. And of course, my mother, she had marks on her body that no one could explain. The doctors were puzzled by it. But yet we were told, you've been abducted. Years went by. I used to go up to Greenville, PA. There was a group up there, a woman by the name of Sharon. She'd have monthly meetings. And there was a group that would attend our monthly meetings. We'd get together and we'd carpool and go up to her meetings. And this one particular time, she's telling me, she said, Dan, are you coming next month to the meeting? And I said, oh, yeah, I'll be here. I'll be here. And she said, well, there's a woman that wants to meet you. And I said, oh, okay. And she's telling me, she said, but I want to, forewarn you, when you meet her, don't think ill of her, because first impression people get, she's an oddball. She's a little strange. Now we're in it's a church, school, auditorium type building. And the room that we were in, they called it the Great Room. And it was a library. And you'd go in this, and the wall over to the left, from floor to ceiling, was a big fireplace, gigantic. And they had 6 big sofas placed around this fireplace, and some armchairs that people could sit and, talk or read or do whatever. On the opposite side of the room, they had 9-foot banquet tables. And they had them set up in a big rectangle. There were 4 9-foot tables down this side, 2 this way, 4 coming back, and then 2. Made a big rectangle, and they had people that would sit all the way around those tables at the meetings. In this particular meeting, you go in, and I'm at the very end on the corner. And at that point, there were 50, 60 people sitting around these tables. When you went into this place, you walked through a set of glass doors into a little bit of a vestibule. You'd go through a second set of glass doors into a larger room. Then you'd go through a third set of glass doors, and you'd go off down to different hallways to go to different areas of this campus. When they brought this woman in, she very old and very frail. She had to have somebody help her. And the minute she came through the first set of doors, she was overcome. So they had to have somebody on both sides of her helping her to come into the hall. Now, I had no idea who this lady was. I wouldn't even be able to point and say, "Oh, that's the lady, because I didn't know who she was. The minute she walked through the doorway into the hall, we made eye contact. And it's almost like as if her eyes were burning a hole through me. And they brought her up. Sharon said, "Dan, I want to introduce you," and I extended my hand to shake her hand, and she clasped my hand in between her two hands. Never took her eyes off of me. She's staring me dead square eye to eye, and the first thing that came out of her mouth was, "You have been taken 23 times." I have this all on
Wow.
audio. You meet somebody for the first time, and they tell you, "You've been taken 23 times." Yeah, hey, what?
I mean, I can say that nobody's ever introduced themselves to me like that. So
Yeah, it makes you wonder. I mean, it really does.
it
Now,
does.
I'm not saying that I'm not saying I have been. I've been told that I have been. Uh, I've had bizarre dreams. I call them virtual dreams. We all dream, and the best way I can describe it is, do you ever have a dream that you'll wake up, you need to go get a drink of water, or maybe a bathroom break, and you say, wow, that dream seemed like it was so real. You get up,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
go
of
get a
course.
drink, thinking about it. You go to the bathroom, thinking about it. You go back to bed, and the minute you laid down and your head hit the pillow, and you dropped off into a deep sleep, that dream picked right back up where it left off. Never skip a beat. I call those virtual dreams. I've had dreams my whole entire life that one of them, and I still have them today. Uh, you're in a blacker than black void. Now, this is the only way I can describe it. A white light, brighter than any light you can imagine, in the center, and it's spinning, and you're being drawn toward it. And I am fighting with every ounce of my being to keep from being drawn into that light. So much so that when I wake up, it's like I just stepped out of the shower with my clothes on, soaking wet from head to toe. And I mean, it just can't explain it other than what I've just told you. Another dream that I have, uh, I'm on an elevated platform or table. I can see the wall in front of me is a massive wall of all kind of gauges and controls and blinking lights. And there are all these beings, every one of them are dressed alike, and they've got their backs toward me, and they're manipulating these gauges and these controls. And I'm screaming at them at the top of my lungs to try to get them to acknowledge me, to let me get up off of this table, and I'll wake up, and again, I'm soaking wet, like I just get out of the shower with my clothes on. I try to encourage people, when you have dreams, especially what I consider virtual dreams, keep a journal beside your bed or in the nightstand. And, if you have a dream like that, before you lay back down to go to sleep, jot down as much as you humanly possibly can remember. You might do that for 6 months. You might do that for a year. You might do that for 2 years. And you pick it up and, this is just a bunch of mumble jumble. It doesn't make any sense. You got to faithfully do that and continue to do it, because it's like putting the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle together. That's your subconscious releasing information, and eventually what you think is mumbo jumbo is eventually going to form a picture, and it'll help you have a better understanding as to why you're having these dreams. 1982, I lived up on Route 38. I rented a home. Some friends of mine had come over for the evening. I was laid off, he was laid off, and him and his wife and we'd get together and would play cards, sometimes till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And this one particular evening, it wasn't completely dark yet, but yet the sky was pure blue. It was getting toward dusk, and my daughters were still little in diapers, and they were in the bathtub, and of course couldn't leave them unattended. So the wife is in there, taking care of them, and buddy of mine, his wife, she was pregnant, and she said, "Well, I'll go in and I'll keep them company while you and Howard, her husband, while you guys, do what you're gonna do." So I had been working on a CJ5 Jeep that I had, and had done a tremendous amount of work. And Howard says, "Well, show me what you've done to your Jeep." And we get up, and I go out the back door, stepped out onto the back porch, and as I started to get down the steps, he reached up and he grabbed me by the back of my arm. Out my back door, now my landlord, he lived probably 2, 3 football fields distance-wise away from where my house was. You could just see the top of his roof because of the contour of the ground. His wife trained horses, so they had big horse corrals all over the place. I lived on a three-acre plot of ground. And then, of course, his house, like I said, was just slightly down over the hill. But way out in the distance, you could see a tree line. And Howard says, "What the hell is that back there?" And I look up. It's almost like as if somebody was standing right in front of you holding a spotlight shining in your eyes. You're shielding your face like this, the eyes from the light being so bright. And this thing, whatever it was just down below the tops of the trees. I said, "Oh, I don't know, Howard, maybe landlord put up a new dusk to dawn light. He does have horse corrals back there." And I walked out around the corner of the garage, didn't really think much more of it. As soon as I cleared the garage, I looked back up. Well, now this thing is just above the tops of the trees. He joined me and he said, "No," he said, "that's not a dusk to dawn light. What the heck do you think that is?" And what it looked like a translucent, milky bubble. And inside you could see some type of structure, but you couldn't quite make out what it was because it was so bright. We stood there and we looked at it. I went ahead and I pulled the hood pins on the Jeep, lifted the hood up, and I walked around and opened up the door and reached in and I started it up. And as soon as I started it up, split second, boom. And that brightness of that object winked out. Didn't go out completely, but it dimmed significantly. And when it did, you could clearly see the perfect outline of a triangle. And of course, the whole thing was enclosed in what looked like a translucent, milky kind of bubble.
How big do you think that triangle was?
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry. I had just asked, how big do you think that triangle was?
Well, I'll
As
get
far
to
as
that.
okay,
I reached in and I turned the Jeep off. And the split second I turned it off, boom, the brightness come back. Wow, look at that. And I reached in, I started the Jeep back up, and boom, it diminished, didn't go completely out. And I thought, this is just too unreal. So I reached in, I shut the Jeep off, and I ran in the house. And I remember when I ran in, I wanted to go back to the hallway to tell them to come out and look at this thing. I have a background in photography. I didn't really get into that in the beginning, but I'd been taking video and still pictures of my children, I had a 35 millimeter camera sitting on the dining room table, fresh roll film in it. I had a, professional grade video camera, and it had a fresh magazine and a full battery in it. I run back the hall and I say, "You guys got to come and see this. You're not going to believe this." And when I went past the TV, it's just like a kaleidoscope of colors. There was no picture other than just an array of every color of the rainbow just swirling around my TV screen. The lights were dimming, getting bright, dimming, like a power surge in the electric. I ran back and, my wife says, "Well, I can't leave the girls unattended." And Howard's wife, Terry, she says, "Well, I'll come out. I'll come out." So what do I grab? And I kick myself, excuse my French, kick myself in the ass because I didn't have the wherewithal to grab that 35 millimeter camera and that video camera. What do I grab? A telescope and a pair of binoculars. We go out, I throw the binoculars to Howard. Didn't really realize he put the strap around his neck. Now I have a long telescope and I'm trying to get this thing focused in this telescope and realized it's futile. And I threw the thing down on the ground and I reached up and I grabbed the binoculars and I about took Howard's head off because he had the strap around his neck. By this point, you couldn't see that bubble anymore. You could just see the triangle itself. You take the rack off of a pool table, triangular shaped pool ball rack.
Yeah.
Visualize that, a light on the front and a light on the corner on the back, one on each side. And these things they're not blinking like navigation lights you would see on a commercial or military aircraft. They're pulsating erratically. This thing's starting to move across the sky, and all at once, out the back side of it, the flat side, it was like a blanket of cobalt blue glitter spewing out of this thing. And you could actually see what looked like particles of stuff falling to the ground. And probably,
Oh, wow. That's
probably shooting out of this thing 30, 40 feet. And again, I'm
So,
thinking, wow, look at that.
do you
Look
think
at
that?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say. So I read that. I think in like the Clarion News when you had talked about that. Said that. Is that like spent fuel, or is that like how
Well,
their
I've had
propulsion systems work?
lot of
Or
researchers over the years, physicists, uh, people that have doctrines and whatnot. They said that they thought it was a plasma discharge, but I don't know that to be fact. We watched this thing, and at this point, it's looking up at it at about a 45-degree angle. As it was directly above us, the best way I can describe size, you asked how big it was. If you were to take one of those pull ball racks and hold it up at arm's length and look up at it, that's how big this thing was. So actual size, it was ungodly huge. Now we're looking
okay.
directly up at the bottom. And these lights, they're just pulsating erratically. Howard says, "Look, look, look, look." And between the front light and the two lights on the back, you could see crescent-shaped openings. Same distance, front to back. And when those openings opened up into full circles, you could see up inside this thing. If there's such a thing as the goldest gold of gold that you can imagine, that's what it looked like up inside. But there were also two metallic spheres. Very shiny, very highly metallic. Those things dropped down out of that triangle simultaneously. And they dropped down so far, and then they bobbed up and down real slow until those openings closed.
Now, did these spheres look anything similar to the ones that you saw when you were 5, when it was above your uncle's vehicle?
Well, those were more disc shaped. The ones above my uncle's car. These spheres were probably size wise, from where we were, bigger than a Volkswagen Beetle. They're perfectly round, very highly metallic spheres. Once the opening's closed, I'm standing looking at the one on the right, looking up at it. Sparks started shooting out from the center of it. I turned to look to see what the one on the left was doing, and just that quick, in the blink of an eye, one shot north, one shot south. The lights on the bottom of this triangle went even crazier. It went from a stationary position to a zigzag to the left, zigzag back to the right, and in the blink of an eye shot straight up till you couldn't see it anymore. There's a community that's probably 15-mile away from where I was living at the time, called Karn City. There were people in Karn City that reported just the opposite of what I just explained to everybody. They saw these spheres coming in. They just materialized out of nowhere, and they're playing follow the leader or chasing each other around. And all at once they stopped, hovered, and started bobbing up and down real slow. And out of nowhere, this massive triangle appeared, opened up on the bottom, spheres went up inside, those openings closed, and boom, in the blink of an eye, the triangle was gone.
Okay, wow. So
Now,
that covered a lot of ground.
I'm a veteran. I was in the U.S. Navy, stationed aboard the USS America, CBA 66. Aircraft carrier, it was a part of their attack group. I worked on a lot of sensitive aircraft. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, what we saw is not anything that we have. I'm also a former police officer. So, just basically, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we're not all there is. There's over 100 billion star systems in our galaxy. Life is abundant. Our government has been in contact with several different races of aliens. Even though you hear about disclosure, I hope and pray that in my lifetime, our lifetime, we will have full disclosure. You're starting to hear more and more and more about UFOs, now called UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. Our government is still withholding critical information from the people. Full disclosure is not going to come from our government. It's going to come from groups like ours.
Are you familiar with Preston Dennett
Yes,
by chance?
yes.
Preston was on our show a couple of weeks ago, and he said the exact same thing. I had asked him, and I will ask you. I mean, you just said such an incredible amount of things that I want to like kind of fall back to and ask questions about. But before I do that, do you think that the conversations that we were seeing in front of Congress recently, do you think that that is part of disclosure, slow drip, or and Preston kind of went the other way and thought that it was theatrics and a distraction and to try to distract us from some actual truths that were happening at the same time. And then to follow that up, not long ago we have the the Mexican Congress was looking into some bodies and interviewing some people. So, do you think that what we're seeing in Congress and with the government is true disclosure, or is that more theatrics to kind of distract us?
It's actually both. Uh, there is some truth in what we are hearing, but there is also some lies and falseness with what we're hearing. I tell people, and it's a hot topic. People really get upset, but you know, I served in the military. I do not trust our government, no way, shape, or form.
I don't know
Uh,
many veterans who would say different than that. And thank you for everything you did as well.
I appreciate it. Uh, like I said, that's why I made the statement that I did, that disclosure is not going to come from our government. Our government has lied to the people so much, and has covered up and has hidden so much, that they'll never come clean with it, because they don't want to make themselves look bad. They say 1947 Roswell. Well, actually, there were two retrieved craft in 1946 that you hear very little, if anything, about. Our military, on a day-to-day basis, right now, day to day, are having close encounters with UAPs off the West Coast, off the East Coast of the United States, and you're not hearing about it on the evening news. Although you do have some witness blowers that they feel that the public has a right to know. Just recently, the Pentagon did admit that UAPs, UFOs, are real, and they don't know what they are or where they're from, although I believe they do know, and they are not quite sure what they can do about it, if anything. And there's technology out there, the military-industrial complex, and the people that control all the money in the world. Uh, they don't want the technology released to the people, and they will actually kill your whole entire family to keep that truth and those secrets from getting out. And that might seem hard to say, but it's actual fact. There's uh, a device no bigger than a standard shoebox that would give you all the power you could ever want or ever need for your entire lifetime and beyond. And that technology has existed for decades, but yet
Is this like
they
a
don't
Nikola
know.
Tesla kind of thing?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can get into it. You can dig and dig and dig and dig and dig, and there's information out there, but it exists. It's there, and it's sad, because I think every man, woman, and child on this planet could benefit so significantly from the technology that they have, that they won't release. And that's sad. It really is.
Yeah,
So Dan, I have a quick question, Dan. So again, thank you for your service and your service as an officer as well. Um, so we have these cover-ups and disclosures and things like that, but why do you think that the extraterrestrials, the other life forms, are coming here? Like they're obviously traveling, speed of light, if not faster, or whatever they figured out to get here. And they could have like we could be done. Like they could have ended us easily if they have that technology to travel like that, right? Like we don't have that. So like they're a little bit more advanced, but like why do you think they're here?
I believe that we're everybody is becoming more enlightened, uh, kind of like climbing a ladder, so to speak. Uh, there are good and there are bad. There are races of aliens that would think nothing of wiping out humanity completely. Uh, there's a fine balance there, and our government has been in contact with both. But I think because the government is not really divulging the information and making people aware of really what's going on, that they are attempting to make contact with man. And I don't mean landing on the lawn of the White House. I think that you'll find out, like I said, that full disclosure is going to come from the people, not the government.
Are
And
you
that's
familiar
because these
with
beings, they'll make contact with the people.
right? Are you familiar with the work of Bud Hopkins by chance?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. When you were talking about some of those experiences at the beginning of the program, I couldn't help but think of a book that I haven't finished it because I I'm like every other millennial. I have the attention span of a cricket at this point because of technology that's in my hand at like at all times. But I've been reading this book called Intruders: The Incredible Visitations at Copley Woods,
That's a
and of
good book.
course that's a follow up to Missing Time, a documented study of UFO abductions. So I have not read Missing Time, but he talked about Missing Time in Intruders, and in Intruders he talks a lot about some of those things that you said you experienced. So uh, your your scoop marks, those are documented all throughout this book. Um, some of the dreams that you had talked about are discussed in this book with the people who were kind of, I don't want to say suffering, maybe experiencing these events with extraterrestrials as well. So you said you had that implant on your leg and you still have that. Do you think that these uh, experiments or operations, whatever is occurring, is not nefarious? Like that this is something that was done in a way to help you in some way?
I have a lot of mixed feelings when it comes to that. I think that there have been so many documented cases where people that have been abducted say that these beings they have no feelings. I think a lot of it has to do with genetics and DNA and crossbreeding, and that
That's
these aliens are trying to create a crossbreed, a bridge between them and us.
I
And
know ultimately that's where he goes with that part of
yeah,
the rest of the book that I haven't gotten to yet, but um, I do know that that's essentially where he ends up going as far as his theories in that book Intruders. So I'm glad you brought that up.
So
Actually,
if you look at it from like the perspective that there are life forms coming from outer space coming here to like do different experiments and breeds and stuff, let's reconsider for a second. This is just hyperbole. This is just an example. But let's consider like, what if they're demons?
there
What if
are
they're
a
not
lot. There's
actually
a lot of
you know,
speculation that these beings are the work of Satan.
so we talked to Father Vincent Lambert a couple weeks ago. He is the one of the most known exorcists within the Roman Catholic Church. He's in the Diocese of Indianapolis, and he said that like a lot of he believes that a lot of these interactions are demons, right, and not extraterrestrial life, but it's a demon manifest on Earth. So like if we take that and consider like, is this aliens or what if it's demons? How does that change? That completely changes the story, right? Because now it's not just extraterrestrials trying to interact with us, but now it's demons. So that's a different story.
Yeah, it's you're getting into an area where there's so much speculation. Uh, it could possibly be. Uh, Again, I'm hopeful that in our lifetime we will find out one way or the other. They say end times are here, and we are all going to experience end times. That it's that close, but we just have to wait and see, I guess.
Have you ever tried memory regression therapy at all to help with any of the missing time that you guys experienced?
I uh, through our membership, uh, our group, we have several people that are abductees, and they are working with regressive hypnosis, and they've been trying to get me to go under regressive hypnosis, and I'm kind of torn in half. And half of me wants to do it, the other half of me is telling me that I'm not ready. And I've been told to just walk slow and that continue to do what I'm doing, and that'll eventually bring me up to speed to where I'll be more comfortable and go ahead and go under regressive hypnosis.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you're even, I'd say the smallest portion of you wasn't ready to hear that, I imagine that it would be um, kind
Traumatic.
of shattering to your
Yeah.
being. Yes, traumatic, and so um, that would be interesting, though. When if you ever get to that point, I believe we talked very briefly about Dr. Greer on the phone, and I think he was involved with some of that before the Disclosure Project. Um, I don't know if he's still actively involved with that or not, but
He's
that's just
he's
another.
very Dr. Stephen Greer is very actively involved in disclosure. Uh, he uh, was or is the head of CSETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. He does seminars all the time, and he has seminars all over the country, especially out Sedona, Arizona. Uh, Now, we had several years ago, we had Dr. Stephen Greer come to the Butler County Community College and put on a presentation for us. And, uh, just since then, he has grown significantly. He's worked with a lot of our leaders in Congress. He's testified before the Congressional Subcommittee, uh, on UFOs and whatnot. So yeah, he's one of the forerunners. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, I consider him kind of like one of the last outlaws of the paranormal.
oh, absolutely,
He
absolutely.
he just comes from that age of study that just doesn't exist anymore, and I I feel like I romanticize it a lot. That 80s era, 90s era um, ufology. It's I just can't help. That's why I picked this Intruders book up. I just saw it randomly and it just called to me. Like I knew I had to have this. But I don't know. I guess you got your Travis Walton era where things were harder to fake. It was still new and in some ways scary. It's just a lot different than like scrolling through TikTok or Twitter and just watching videos that it took real effort and you really put yourself on the line when you would get involved on either side of this. If whether a researcher or someone who experienced things and had the courage to speak up about it, people looked at you different, and they still do in a way. But it's just I feel like that era, up until technology, kind of the internet age kicked in. it was definitely, you were more brave of a person to get involved, and there's not a lot of people like Greer left.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I encourage everybody. Just I tell people a lot. Uh, they'll say, "Gee, I wish I'd see something," or "Gee," and I say, one must be careful what he or she wishes for. You may not like what you find out, but
Yeah.
I
I have
encourage
one singular
everyone.
UFO event.
If you see something you can't explain, don't hold the information. Report it. Tell someone. Because that's
To
the only
who?
way that the
Who are we
truth is
reporting
ever
to?
going to come out. People have to be
Not the
more open
government,
with
though.
one another, and bring this topic to light.
Do you have any members that are from MUFON at all?
I'm former MUFON. We have dozens of members that either are or were MUFON.
I love that organization. Like I support them
Well,
wholeheartedly.
they're very scientific about, like, it's not
Oh
just,
yeah.
oh, look, aliens.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, cleaning up, like I stated earlier, a lot of this clutter behind me, but I came across all my old MUFON ID tags. I still got them. Yeah,
Well, I appreciate what I think are the alien skeletons on the right side of you. The
thank
one
you.
has a
That's
hat.
what those are.
Yeah. I was gonna bring the alien skeletons up at some point too. I've been
I've been
pretty.
every time I look over here, I just see them in the corner of the camera.
Yeah, I've actually got. They're downstairs in the bar. They're 4 foot high, alien gray. They're actually Hollywood props. They were made out in Hollywood. And every year at our annual
Like the
conference,
moon landing.
we display them, and a lot of people they like getting their picture taken with them.
Sure.
Well,
But go
I
ahead.
I was just gonna say, man, that hour blew by.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
There is just so many more questions that I could have for you, but we don't like to take too much of our guests' time.
Well,
Would
podcast
you?
too. You know. Yeah, and we
Yeah,
haven't even talked about my latest venture up at Kinzu by Bigfoot. Haven't
We
even
should
really
we should
scratched the
get we
surface.
need to get that. We need to get that, right?
yeah. If you don't mind staying on, I'll absolutely keep talking. I mean, we're called Sasquatchers, and we just never get to the Bigfoot stuff at
Yeah.
all,
We
ever.
miss it every time. So yeah, you should
Well,
tell us about that.
uh, have you ever been up to Kinzu Dam, Allegheny National
Yeah.
Forest?
Yep.
Uh,
I have
I've been
not.
up there dozens of times. Every time I go up, I come home with more questions than answers. And it's not just, cryptids, Bigfoot, Dogman. We've also gone up for, UFO investigations. But this last visit, there's an area up there close to the dam that, excuse me, this time of the year they drain it. And I asked a buddy of mine the last time I spoke with him. I said, I've been meaning to ask you, why do they drain that area? This area is normally under 40 feet of water. And he said it's because, they get so much ice buildup and so much water runoff in the spring that it creates tremendous flooding. So by them draining this out, it eliminates a great portion of that. They drain it down, and after several weeks, you're able to walk out across it. And it's an area I could say the size of 10 football fields, but it's probably 2, 3 times even bigger than that. You'd have to see it to actually believe it. Uh, I actually posted some of the pictures on our Facebook page. So if anybody wanted to, look me up on Facebook, and they could go to my page and they could look at some of the pictures that we posted.
What's the Facebook page?
It's just go to Facebook and type in, look up Daniel Hageman, or look up BORU, BORU.
And we'll
But
we'll
we're
put all of the links into any of our platforms and stuff too, as well. So
okay.
to help push your organization and get
I
everything
appreciate it. Really do.
that you're
Dan,
working on out there.
if you don't add me as a friend, I'm going to be really offended.
Well, when you send me a friend's request, make reference to podcast, so that'll draw my attention, and I'll
I'm just
accept you as
kidding.
a friend. But we're walking out across this area and looking for footprints. Obviously, you're walking out across an area that it's muddy, it's soupy in some areas. Still, some of the areas were entirely too soupy to even try to walk through because you'd sink up to your knees in mud. But you're walking across an area where you've got rusty uh, chunks of metal cans. You've got fishing lures, rusted hooks, fishing hooks that still have leaders of string on them, all rusty. And you come across these child-sized footprints, barefoot. What parent in their right mind would allow their child to run or walk through that area in their barefoot? You just, you don't do it. Uh, we're walking along, we're following what we assume are juvenile footprints, and of course, again, the pictures are on the internet. Also, there's a lot more strange Kinzu. You go to Facebook and look up strange Kinzu. We're following these footprints. We're going probably about 150, 200 yards. Left foot, right foot. And all at once, the child's footprints, they're gone. Now you've got a large set of footprints. These footprints have over a 4.5 foot stride between the right and the left foot. Can you imagine that?
Okay.
Over 4.5 foot stride.
It's pretty big leg span.
Again, barefoot. Some of the pictures I've just posted on the recent footprints that we came across, 18 inches from heel to toe, 7 inches wide, and of course sunk, a good 2-3 inches down into the mud. Definitely not human. But we're following the juvenile footprints. All of a sudden now you've got adult footprints. The juvenile footprints are gone. You have to assume it picked the juvenile up. Now the adult is carrying the juvenile. You're following the adult footprints. You go maybe 100, 110 yards, and all at once there's one footprint and there's nothing beyond it. There's nothing to the right. There's nothing to the left. Where did it go? It's almost
Okay,
like
so
as if something come in and picked it up. I
you're
can't
you're
explain it other than that.
you're bringing
Yeah,
something up that I've been wanting to ask people with experiences with Sasquatch and Bigfoot, and like we said, we just we just don't get to it. Um, do you think that the theory of Sasquatch being an interdimensional traveler has any weight? Like, do you think that possibly you came to the end of a track before the Squatches set forth into a portal of some kind or wormhole?
absolutely. There is a tremendous amount of speculation that Bigfoot is interdimensional and possesses the capability of being able to slip in and out of our dimension at will. We have eyewitness reports of people seeing Bigfoot standing close to a tree or going into a crouched position, putting its hands up in front of its face and dematerializing right in front of them. Uh, yeah, it's overwhelming. The experiences I've personally had up at Kinzu, uh, friend of mine that I go up and stay with when I'm up there. We'll go into these different areas, Rimrock. Uh, there's another area called the Circle, and each one of them have their own story behind them. But there's an area up there where apparently a porthole opens and closes, and Denny has actually experienced being in this portal when it opens. You're standing there walking down a trail. The grass is all beaten down, clearly a trail. And all at once, that trail disappears, and you're now looking at what looks like you're in the jungles of Vietnam or the Amazon. Dense, dense, dense vegetation. That path or trail that you were on is gone. Denny has stated that this particular occasion, there was a heavy ground fog that came in out of nowhere. The trail in front of him disappeared and opened up into heavy vegetation. And it got real bright, and he said it's like he's looking at these ancient cliff dwellings. Now, Denny has been in this area hundreds of times. And he said, I know what I was looking at isn't normal. And he said, I knew enough to stay right there, not go any further. And he said, after a little while, it closed, and there the path is again in front of me. I was up there. It was a little bit later in the year than it is right now. And it was cold, it was damp, it was sleet on and off. And I went up, I had an electromagnetometer with me, some other equipment. And I'm standing there and I'm starting to do a sweep. And all at once the needle started teetering back and forth. Come up about half scale and then slowly drop back down. Come up half scale, slowly drop back down. Denny's standing to the right of me, another guy, Jim, was standing to the left of me, and all at once, that needle pegged so hard, full scale, that I thought, holy crow, did my meter just blow up or what? And they could hear it. They didn't see it. They could hear that needle slamming full peg. And then that needle slowly wavered until it dropped back down to zero. And I looked at Jim, because both Jim and Denny, they were born, grew up in that area. And I said, are there any underground electric lines here? High tension underground electric lines. And Jim said, you bring a backhoe in here, you could dig to China. You're not going to hit any electric lines. There are no high tension lines overhead. So therefore, can't explain why that meter was acting the way it was. The wind picked up, it started sleeting real bad, and we ended up going back to the car. I told Denny, I said, I wished I would have just stayed in place, because this is the area where that portal opened. He saw the ancient cliff dwellings. That's where we were. And I think that it was possibly starting to open up, and it was, we just left too soon. Denny has a friend that it's not a friend, a family member on the sheriff's department. And Denny, he gets in daily. He'll go out, he'll just day in, day out, day in. He's out walking these trails and walking around. Sheriff's department, car pulls up, and the window goes down, and they holler at him, Denny, come on over here. And here, not the guy driving the sheriff's car, but the guy in the passenger seat was Denny's relative. And they warned him. They said, you can't be doing this. And Denny said, can't be doing what? And this is a park. It's open to the public. I'm not doing anything wrong. No, we didn't say you were doing anything wrong, but we're going to warn you. And this is the only warning you're going to get. If we get a call from your wife or somebody that says that you didn't come home, nobody's going to come looking for you till daylight, because we don't come into this part of the park after dark. Even if we have to go to the bathroom, we'll drive across the road down to the next, uh, portage on or whatever, and go to the bathroom there. We will not come in this area after dark. Then he said, "Why?" We can't tell you anything more than that. His relative said, "Denny, are you packing?" And Denny says, "What do you mean am I packing?" "Yeah, I got my backpack right here. Let me see it." Looked through his backpack, and he didn't have any weapons with him other than a knife, cell phone, flashlight. And they told him, they said, "You come back into this area, you better bring something big enough that can drop an elephant. That's all we're going to tell you."
Wow.
Denny has had people tell him, uh, park officials, that they've seen things that are not of this world running around in the woods up there. They
And
wouldn't go
just
into
not
detail,
at liberty to
but
discuss it.
Denny on his trail cameras, and like I said, many of these pictures are on Strange Kinzo. Uh, he calls it the mole creature, and we don't know if it's a juvenile Bigfoot. We've tried blowing the picture up, and we've used software to enhance to try to clear the picture up even better than what it is. And tell you what, it looks almost prehistoric as far as the creature that he's captured on his trail cam.
Oh,
We
that's
don't know if
cool.
that's what these park people or his relative in the sheriff's department is referring to. Now he's had like family outings and family reunions, and he's had this family member there and trying to pick his brain, but he said, I can't tell you anything more than what I've already told
Huh.
you. I mean, it's bad. Denny's had personal, uh, 10, 12 foot away encounters with Bigfoot. The one time that we were up there, stayed for a couple nights, and we went out to an area called Rim Rock. And they got these gigantic, these rocks are sometimes the size of a 3-story house. And there was one that's perfectly flat on top, slightly angled, and it's probably 11 feet off the ground to the top of this rock. Then he says, "That's where we're camping tonight. Do you think you can get up there?" And I said, "Oh, I'll get up there." We get up there and we put our bedding out, and we had our picnic cooler. We're sleeping, 4 o'clock in the morning. Denny wakes me up, and it's light enough that you can, you know, see a good bit around you. You can make out different things. And Denny says, "Did you hear that?" And I said, "Hear what?" "Hear you snoring." "Yeah, I heard you." "No, no, no." He says, "I'm serious. Did you hear that?" And I said, "No, Denny, I honestly didn't." And about that time, you didn't need to hear it. You could feel it. There were footfalls. Bump, bump, bump. I sat straight up and I looked at Denny and I said, "What the hell is that?" And he says, "Come on, let's get down. Let's get down." So we climbed down off of that rock we were on, and we started walking back toward the parking lot, and Denny heard this grunt. And first thing that come to mind, I thought black bear, you know. And then I thought, no, wait a minute. No, those footfalls, too heavy to be a black bear. That couldn't have been a black bear. Next thing, Denny says, "Look, look, look, look." And he's pointing toward the rock that we had just gotten off of. Here's a Bigfoot. I wish you could see the goosebumps I've got, guys. Standing there looking, staring directly at us. Had a picnic cooler up on top of this rock. And like I said, this rock's 11 foot high. Had its arm extended, had the lid flipped open on the picnic cooler, and it's rooting around, feeling around inside the picnic cooler, never took its eyes off us. brought an apple out, brought it down, and clasped it with both hands in front of its chest, made a grunting sound, walked around the corner of the rock, and then he hollered. I looked up, and here there were three of them, and we assume it was, a mother, uh, a juvenile, and the father, and they disappeared into the woods.
Oh wow!
We went
It's
back
just
to the car. And
completely,
we're like
completely
maybe
unbothered.
15 feet away from this thing, and I mean, I'm telling you what, just ungodly huge. We get back to the car, and we sit in the car until daylight. We get back, and when we get back, we got pictures. They're on Strange Kinzu if you guys want to look this up. Uh, right beside the picnic cooler, there were rocks that were piled up. They were good sized rocks, but they were like piled on top of one another. And I said to Denny, what the hell is this? And Denny says, well, I think that's a gift. And I said, well, what do you mean it's a gift? And he said, well, they took our food, and this is what they're giving us in exchange for that. And I mean, that's burnt in the back of my mind. That's something I'll never forget. That I know beyond a shadow of a doubt. As sure as we're on here talking, we're doing this podcast. The big hairy creature, he is alive and well. Is it flesh and blood? It's a good question. Is it biomechanical, meaning a mechanical skeleton structure with flesh and hair over top of that?
Good question.
There are so many reports of people reporting a Bigfoot creature or Bigfoot creatures, followed by a UFO sighting, or a UFO sighting, then sightings of a Bigfoot or Bigfoot creatures. When you look at it in that respect, and then you think about George Lucas, Star Wars, where did he ever get the idea to cast a character as the Wookiee, a Bigfoot? Think about it. But they're real.
Absolutely.
They exist.
But
so Dan, if you had anything to say to like the naysayers and the haters and that, what would you tell them?
I have, and I will continue to do so. You don't have to believe what I say. You can call me a nut. You can call me a kook. You can tell me I'm as crazy as a $6 bill. Keep an open mind. That's all I say to them. If you don't believe, just keep an open mind.
Here at Sasquatchers, we encourage that same sentiment. Always keep the open mind. I think there's a difference in being a skeptic and being a jerk. And I think a lot of times those two things cross over a little more than they should. The scientific method, we talked to Preston Dennett about that as well. It shouldn't be taken out of the equation when it comes to the paranormal and cryptozoology. So the importance of the scientific method, needs to be adhered to in all regards, especially in these still completely unproven, hard to believe situations such as UFOs and Bigfoot. I want to thank you for coming onto the show. This has just blown by. I feel like I could sit here and just let you talk for 6 hours. I would really love and appreciate if we could have you back on again sometime.
I want to thank you guys. It truly has been a pleasure, and I would absolutely love to come back on.
Awesome. We'll be in touch and figure that out. And once again, You are the director of the Butler Organization for the Research of the Unexplained. And we will share all of your links and information. And I implore all of the listeners to, seek this out. I am originally from that area. I grew up in between Leechburg and Katanning. I bounced back and forth, and this is something that I wish I'd known about growing up, because
As am I.
yeah, I would have sought this out. And I honestly just discovered this doing show prep and research. And
Yeah.
but man, I just hope anyone who's local to that area, or anybody who can, make a trip out and help you out and become a member, that they do. We always sign off in like kind of a silly way here. So I hope you
Here
don't.
we go. Every time. They don't know. We have to tell them ahead of time. We should tell them at the beginning.
Yeah, we should. This
It's,
time
it's just a little saying.
we always sign off with thanks for squatching. So I just don't want you to be taken aback by how silly I'm about to look. But as anyone listening could tell, I've been playing with some of our production values tonight. So I'm going to just go ahead and press this button here. And then at the end, maybe we can all say thanks for squatching.
Sounds good.
Once again, I want to thank anybody who took the time to listen. This was Sasquatchers. And we say thanks for squatching.
For squatching.
Yeah.